olá a todos que nos acompanham, sejam bem-vindos a essa entrevista exclusiva aqui no Fórum de Fundos Imobiliários. Eu sou Letícia Toledo, repórter do Infomoney, e como vocês já sabem, a gente está aqui hoje para falar um pouco sobre as adaptações aí que o mercado imobiliário teve que passar, e mais especificamente o mercado imobiliário aí na parte de escritórios teve que passar durante essa pandemia e como deve ser o cenário pós-pandemia. Para falar sobre o assunto, eu estou aqui com o Claudio Hidalgo, ele que é head do WeWork na América Latina. A entrevista é toda em inglês, mas vocês não se preocupem porque está tudo legendado para vocês acompanharem a gente. Então, sem mais delongas, vamos começar. Claudio, first of all, thank you very much for your participation, for being here with us. The first question that I have for you is about the scenario that we see today in WeWork offices, WeWork spaces, because in the beginning of this pandemic, we saw WeWork and other companies, co-working companies, closing the offices, so they could readapt the environment, the spaces to have social distance and all the measures that are needed in this pandemic today. And now I would like to understand how is the occupancy rate that you see in the offices? How is it working? Did your customers already come back to the offices?
So thank you, Leticia, and hello everyone there. I would love to do it in Portuguese, but my Portuguese is really bad. So thank you, and I feel honored to be participating on this forum. So to your question, so at the beginning, I would say in April, maybe end of March, like everybody went through this new pandemic without knowing what was coming, right? We were all under a lot of uncertainty, and we didn't really know exactly what to do about it, right? So we've been learning. These couple of months have been a continuous learn process for all of us. There was many people at that moment that said that it's the end of the office, right? Many people were sent back to their houses to work from home, and there was a very, I would say, premature comments on the offices that it's gone, right? So we suffered with that. It was painful for us at the beginning, but at the same time, we were able to reinvent ourselves because we were not going to let this happen to us, and we needed to run as a single team in Latin America and globally, I would say, to reinvent the way we work. You know? Now, we took certain steps. The first step we took at the moment was, of course, the priority was our employees, our members, and our suppliers. So we sent everybody home. We implemented social distancing, professional distancing, etc. That was the first measure we took because we didn't want anyone to have any kind of risk at the beginning of this pandemic. You know? Then we started to make adjustments. We started to adjust our own buildings immediately in April. Our awesome teams in market were able to start modifying how do you move within the building. We removed all the reusable like cups and forks and etc. And then we changed and we doubled down all the protocols on cleanliness. So we doubled down on cleanliness. We disinfect the areas. We changed the layout of our common areas in the building to make sure that we had enough social distancing. So we immediately started to act within our buildings. Now, it's also important to know that because we're a global company, we've got more than 800 buildings worldwide. We've had the impact also in the Asian markets, especially in China. And at that moment, China was already in a couple of months within the pandemic, so we started to take learnings from them. And all the things that they started to implement there, we took it over here to the west side, and we were able to start executing right away in April to take care of health and security of all employees and members, and all those changes that happened within our buildings. Also, at the same time, we were very conscious of being compliant with all the government rules, government different initiatives that the government launched in terms of creating a safe space for our members. No, and then if I say this has accelerated many things, I would say that's a positive thing out of the pandemic, right? I always want to look at the positive side of this. So we were able to execute many different changes ahead because of the Asian markets, as I mentioned before. No, now you asked me about members coming back to the office. Yeah, I mean, we've got members that are starting to come back in the office, especially in Brazil. Brazil is a pleasant surprise that our members are coming back to the office. And the way we measure their satisfaction with all the actions we've taken, we have an internal net promoter score. And out of the members that have come back to our offices, the net promoter score is extremely high. At levels we've never seen before. We're known for a good experience to our members, but the fact that we've been able to monitor this through surveys of members coming back to our offices and with such a high NPS, that has been for them a wow reaction in terms of the cleanliness, all the changes we did, the air conditioner, the way you move within the common areas, etc., has been very, very, very positive, especially in our case in Brazil. So we see that if we continue to move forward as China or the Asian market has done, they're already after the pandemic, they are already at levels of traffic, members in the buildings at the same level that they were before the pandemic. So we are for sure, we're going to go through the same path. So in the next couple of months, we're going to continue to see our members come back to the offices.
And you mentioned that this pandemic accelerates things and a few changes that WeWork was in a very particular moment of its history because it came through changes in the last year and this year. So I would like to understand, how do you think that this pandemic accelerate things and changes in WeWork besides the pandemic changes, right? Do you have any things that you were planning to execute in the WeWork community and that you were able to do this because of the pandemic?
Yeah, so yeah, we came for a very, I would say, shaked 2019, but that's the past, that's gone. We only can look forward, right? It's impossible for me to wake up earlier yesterday morning, but I can wake up earlier tomorrow morning, right? So looking forward, we changed the leadership and we adjusted the entire organization. We simplified our processes, we simplified our organizational structure, we reduced our cost structure throughout the region, not only LATAM, globally. So we were very well prepared to absorb the impact of the pandemic. Of course, it has had impact on our revenues because some members have decreased their operations and some have left. But at the same time, we were able to adjust overall cost structure and an OPEX structure and CAPEX also to absorb this impact. Now, as our chairman and our CEO presented a couple of months ago, we had a 5-year plan and we're executing on that plan very religiously. I would say that the discipline that has been in place for the leadership team to implement the 5-year plan, it's been extremely positive in terms of results and the ability for us to overcome the pandemic, which is still going, but we see that there is a good growth path moving forward. So the past is the past. I would say that we had a plan for 5 years. We started to execute. The pandemic, as you mentioned, I'd say that before, accelerated the implementation. All these changes when you're trying to transform a company, especially in the real estate industry, that it's pretty heavy in terms of cost, allowed us to implement changes in months instead of years. So we look at that as a very positive sign to see the light at the end of the tunnel for us.
As you mentioned before, people were talking a lot about the end of the offices in the beginning of this pandemic, and now we see a scenario where some companies already announced that they are not coming back to 5 days a week in an office. The employees can choose either which days they will work at home and each days they will work at the office. And there are a few companies that also announced that they are not gonna have offices anymore, spaces for all the employees that they used to have. So in this scenario, I would like to understand, how do you think that this will and is already changing the real estate business and also, of course, the co-working business environment that you see?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. So I was looking at a couple of weeks ago, if you go back in history, back in the 1800s, there was a guy, I guess in New Zealand or Australia, that created the 10-hour work schedules, 5 days a week. At that moment it was 6 days a week up to Saturday. If you think about that, it's been more than 200 years that we've been working with the same structure. Like 8 a.m., go to the office, then have a break, then lunchtime, then on a break, and then go home. 8 hours per day, 10 hours per day, Monday to Friday, same structure. With all the changes in technology, with all the borders and frontiers that literally have been eliminated because of technology, distances are measured today in terms of seconds or in terms of minutes. I mean, I'm in Chile right now, and I was in New York, and it's a 10-hour flight. That's the difference between one place and the other. And I can be working in New York one day and Chile in the next day. So if you think about that, it's been more than 200 years working exactly the same way. We kind of needed something to change that and take advantage of the technology that allow us to actually be anywhere today, right? So I would prefer to call this as the accelerator, as I mentioned before, but also to kill all those paradigms that we had before, like 5 days a week, 8 hours per day, is structured to be at the office, etc. So companies have started to adjust to that pretty quick. And when we talk about work from home, which is kind of a pendulum because we were out of the office and it moved completely to work from home, I would say that it will stand somewhere in the middle. We can discuss if it's 60%, 50%, 30%, it doesn't really matter, but it will move to somewhere in the middle as a hybrid model, but not necessarily work from home. It would be work remotely, and that means anywhere, right? And when you combine that to a different work structure, like Monday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday at home, Tuesday, Thursday at the office, in any place, etc., the way the companies have started to adjust for that, it's amazing, and it's really fascinating how that's how's that happening today. Of course, the real estate industry has an impact on that because we need to adjust pretty quick. The good things about WeWork is that we're already prepared for that because everything we do is based on one single umbrella, which is called flexibility. We offer more than 800 buildings throughout the globe where all our members can access to any building in the world. Up to November the 1st, we launched a promotion for that. So you can work from any of our buildings today in any country. So why are we offering that? Because we've got all the buildings are all connected. We are part of a community. We have a network throughout the world. No, so companies changing the way they work, the amount of days, the hours, etc., the mix between home, office, etc. We are the perfect solution for that adjustment, which is flexibility. And I'll give you some examples. In the US, we've seen also in Brazil, we've seen large companies saying, well, you know what? I don't need the employees to come back up to July next year. And they get rid of their traditional lease, which is something that we compete with in a certain way, right? If they get rid of the traditional lease, and then you have a certain percent of employees that are starting to say, well, you know what? In order to collaborate, in order to drive productivity, in order to drive innovation, to keep the culture of the company alive, etc., there's kind of a need for personal interaction, group meetings, etc. No, people are kind of tired of Zoom. I mean, the last generation, they don't want to be known as the Zoom generation, right? So you get to see a percent of employees that want to work in a different environment, different than their homes, and that's where we play a pretty big role as a flexible company. Because let's say you have 1,000 employees, you send them all home, 10% of them maybe don't have the infrastructure at home to work properly. They also want to interact with their peers. They want to have meetings. They want to drive collaboration. They want to drive productivity. They want to keep their culture alive. They want to be somewhere, right? But they're also not necessarily willing to take public transportation to commute for 2 or 3 hours, right? But because we have buildings all over the city, you can definitely come to the closest one to your home. So that adjustment of the largest companies happen with a mindset of flexibility, and our value proposition, it's flexibility in itself. So we feel pretty comfortable that we've got a pretty good momentum given all the changes that are happening in the industry for us to capture that movement, which I feel it is absolutely the right movement to take care of the employees and give them that flexibility.
Yes, of course. But and do you expect that these big companies will become the main clients of WeWork business and co-working business in general in the next months or in the next year with this change of the environment and the office's policies?
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen a growth in terms of large enterprises, but also in the medium enterprises. No, we've also seen some examples from universities. I mean, universities were not prepared to take students back to school, back to the classroom. Well, we partner with NYU, we partner with Columbia, and we've offered our buildings as classrooms for them to spread their students throughout the cities. So we've seen movements in that way that are absolutely a good benefit for the model that we have. No, there are companies that have even gone beyond that, that used to have probably an office, a headquarter. Now they don't have it anymore. At that moment, that was a cost structure, a fixed cost structure. And now they're offering to their employees, given that they told every employee work from home, they're giving to their employees certain perks. Like, as for example, giving you 50% of gym access, right? Instead of giving you or a car or a cell phone, etc., perks, benefits, well, I'll give you a 50%, I'll give you a 70%, or I'll give you access to an office in WeWork. So we've seen that kind of movement too. So they're turning something that was a fixed cost, something that people needed to go to the office. Now they're turning that into a benefit. And that benefit, because we are prepared, because we have the investment already done, and we have the network of buildings, and all of them are connected, we immediately can absorb that demand that we have seen in almost every single market that we participate on.
And do you see this scenario happening in more countries like Brazil or more developed countries? How do you see this? Is this different depending on the market, the country that you act, or is it the same for all the countries?
Yeah, there are definitely, we have cultural differences, right? And maybe in the more developed countries, they've already managed this for a long time, right? And it was just an accelerator for them, but it was not necessarily that new, right? In Latin America, we have multiple cultures, but on the overall, when you talk about certain industries like technology industry, fintechs, banks, insurance companies, etc., services, etc., they've embraced the change pretty positively. And something that before was maybe considered something, a paradigm of working remote, now it's something that has proven that is possible, right? So this looking for this hybrid model, I feel that companies that maybe a year ago were not even thinking about it, now they went through it, they experienced it, they gain the productivity that they expected, but they also need to solve for their employees to be together in a certain way. And they consider their employee even more valuable than what probably they were considering them before. So taking that into consideration, I feel that this is a wave that is going to happen in every single market. Of course, we need to differentiate markets by their cultures and labor laws, etc. And this is a good point also for the governments to take care of all the labor laws to maximize the flexibility on their employees. And that probably will make the difference between one market and the other. But overall, I would say that every single company in the world will be pushing for that flexibility.
Interesting. And talking a little bit more about this scenario, the industry of co-workings grew a lot in the past years with the serving small business and small entrepreneurs that needed not just the infrastructure, but they also needed a sense of community. They also needed to be part of a community and to have relations with different kind of entrepreneurs and business. Assuming that you're gonna have more big companies as clients, how does this scenario changes? Is it possible for you to serve also the big ones and the small ones in the same office, for example?
So that's a very interesting question, because we already do that. We already manage successfully those different segments, and we appreciate all of those segments. No, we're able to support larger companies with their own single building that we have today, and also multiple locations for their members, for their employees to go to. No, maybe we're not going to be able to manage large enterprises and small companies in a single floor, in the same floor. That kind of mix is not necessarily the right one, no. But we can definitely manage it throughout the different buildings that we have. We have more than 800. We have more than 30 in Brazil that we can dedicate for different segments. So it's something that we do today. We do it successfully, and it works. And definitely with all the social distancing and all the regulations that are coming in every market, we're going to continue to execute on that. No? We're not going to neglect any segment, especially when you talk about the small, medium companies. I mean, the value of our community. We're more than 600 members throughout the world. And every time one of these startups, these new companies, these entrepreneurs need something, they want to expose their product, their processes, or they need services from someone, we connect them with the 600,000 members throughout the world. So that's extremely valuable for them. It's also one of the fundamental pillars for the economies to go back to growth, right? We've seen in many markets that unemployments have gone up, but at the same time, new companies also have come up. So there's a certain entrepreneurial spirit there that we all need to support. So we're definitely going to be able to manage both segments, maybe not in the same floor, but different buildings, different floors. We do it today successfully, and for sure, we're going to continue to do that.
It's not a question of replacing the small entrepreneurs and the small business with the big ones, right? With the big clients, big companies. And do you see the market expanding a lot in this new scenario? Do you see new clients coming on? How much this market can grow in the next years?
So if you think about from a market perspective, we were fighting for the 5-10% of the market, but now, because the large companies were the other 90% with traditional leases, but those large companies started to make the decision that you mentioned before: work from home, work remote, restructure the whole week, the schedules, etc. So that market has completely opened for us, and that's where we see a lot of value for our future. So our plans are to capture both segments. The large enterprises that were more conservative, more on the traditional side, one single building, not connected, everyone in cubicles or everyone in a single floor, etc. by department, now to be way more flexible. And for that, we're definitely an opportunity. We have an opportunity as a WeWork throughout every market that we participate. So for us, what we see is an expansion of the segments, an expansion of the market, that we're able now to participate in those conservative, more less co-work spaces, less shared spaces oriented companies. They have accelerated in the way they work today. They have changed that. And for them, we're an awesome opportunity to work together.
And talking a little bit more about the Brazilian scenario, we had news that we work close to offices that you have in Rio de Janeiro during the pandemic. How do you see the scenario today? Are you planning to close new offices or open new ones? How do you see the environment in Brazil?
So our plan is a plan for profitability. That's where we're driving, no? So we're constantly going to be making decisions on opening and closing locations if they're not within their business plan, they're not meeting the expectations that we have. So this is going to be something common for us. So we're not in the closing buildings business. We're in a profitable business. That's what we're pursuing. So with that, definitely we're going to make decisions of closing certain buildings if they're not performing at the level that we would want to, or that we expect from a business perspective. But at the same time, we will be opening. So we closed 2 in Rio, but we opened like 4 or 5 up to the end of August, if I'm not mistaken, in the rest of Brazil. So because we had a pretty exponential growth in the last couple of years, we were not closing any buildings, no? But now we're in a position where we want to evaluate every single one of our decisions in terms of the portfolio and have the right portfolio to make sure that we cover the demand and we have a profitable business moving forward. So I would say that you're going to see in the future openings and closings, but not necessarily because of the future of WeWork. It's because it's the right thing to do from a business perspective to keep a profitable future.
And in this scenario, the negotiation that you have to rent new spaces also changed in Brazil. And also, Dean, another question about this, but if you plan any acquisition in Brazil, because we saw a lot of medium and small companies, co-working companies that grow a lot in the recent years, in the past years, but they also spend a lot of money trying to increase, trying to grow, and now they are in a bad situation. Do you see any possibility of making acquisitions, or do you prefer to grow, renting new spaces? How is this scenario for you today?
So we want to continue to grow. I mean, that's our business. We want to expand our network. The one thing that we're doing now is consolidating the profitability within the network that we have today. but we're not close to any negotiations that we could have. So everything is on the table for us to continue to grow. In the meantime, what we're trying to do, and I would say very successfully in the last couple of months, is to adjust the organization in order to have the fundamentals and the right pillars for us to go back to growth. And if acquiring other companies, or renting other spaces, or doing some more revenue shares as we do in Brazil is the way for us to grow, we're definitely open to conversations about that.
Question, since you are the head of WeWork in Latin America, in which scenario do we see Brazil compared with other markets that you are in Latin America today? Is it the largest, it will be the largest one, continues to be the largest one that you have here? Or how do you see comparing with other opportunities in other countries today?
So we have two large markets in Latin America. We have Mexico and Brazil. Now, from a health perspective, from a growth perspective, Brazil, for sure, it's our main market. In fact, that's why our headquarters for Latin America is moving to Sao Paulo. That's why I was talking to you before that pretty soon I will be another member of the Brazilian community there. No, definitely Brazil has pretty good expectations for us to continue to grow. It's one of our healthiest markets. It's one of the team that we have there is an awesome team. They've been able to keep our members, to keep the satisfaction of them at a pretty high level. And they have continued to manage the pandemia with a very successful approach in terms of bringing new members on board. So our expectations for Brazil are, I would say, are the strongest one in Latin America. Now, the rest of the countries are more new. I mean, are markets that we opened maybe a year or two ago, and they need a certain ramp up to take to become profitable in the near term. No, so we will continue to invest in those markets too. But definitely Brazil for us, it's our key priority in Latin America.
Claudio, thank you very much for your participation on this event. Thank you very much for your interview. Para todos que nos acompanharam até aqui, muito obrigada também pela participação. Ana Laura, é com você.
Muito obrigada, Letícia. Obrigada, Cláudio. Muito obrigada, Letícia. Obrigada, Cláudio. Eu, como uma investidora em fundos imobiliários, estou sempre procurando pesquisas e comportamentos do mercado para saber onde investir. Então, eu também que acabou de ser tratado aqui.